Here we go. Hi, y'all. We're excited to have you here. I want to welcome you to Flatiron School's Intro to UX. We have a great presentation for you this evening. My name is Corey Mickelson, and I am the Marketing Events Coordinator here at Flatiron School. A big part of my job is going to be hosting free introductory workshops like this one right here, as well as tech talks where we cover hot topics in the tech industry. Quick reminder, we're going to be using the chat button as our main source of communication. So make sure that that little blue button at the bottom goes from host and panelists to everyone so that we can all chat together. We will have some interactive portions, so then you can chat along. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our host for the evening, Scott Dunay. He's one of our lead product design instructors. Take it away, Scott.
Hi. It is so great to really have everyone here, and especially to go over the introduction of UX for that matter, and know that the course that we teach at Flatiron is product design, which UX is a part of. Consider that product design is a large umbrella where a part of that is UX. So really it is the first part to know. And that's why this is just an introduction to it. Really consider it an introduction to the program taught at Flatiron School, taught by myself as well, about product design. So, we'll get right into it. I have a slide presentation prepared and I hope everyone enjoys it. Now, I just want to say that there will be points in the presentation where I may take a breath, and, feel free to ask a question in the chat bot and I'll be sure to answer it. So if we could just wait until those points to ask questions to ensure that I'm able to answer it. Okay, here we go. Now, is everyone able to see my screen? Or yes? Thank you. Amazing. All right, so yes, intro to UX design. Now, it's a matter of, UX, the focus of it is on experience, human experiences with, products and services. Really, it's a matter of, interface, the working within a interface. Now, an interface, when we consider what an interface is, it's really a matter of two separate entities really working interaction together. So for that matter, if we want to define an interface by that, really anything can be an interface. Presently, we describe an interface by a watch, a mobile phone, a desktop, though, it would be limited to think of it as reserved to that. Really, anything could be considered an interface. And for that matter, user experience is pertinent to just about everything. So let's talk about experiences. Can you describe an experience that you love? And in that experience, can you tell us what is it? Why do you love it? What is your favorite part of it? And what left the biggest impression? And if you wouldn't mind commenting in the chat box, I'm curious to know that. The experiences that you talk about, really, they're a billboard of your personality. Of your values. Ooh, shopping or visiting mall. Dominique, what do you go to a mall for? Is it for eclectic and eccentric things, or is there something that you specifically purchased that left the biggest impression on you that you want to go to malls more often? I don't know what that is. Anyone else? Ooh, love it. Okay. And like talking about broad terms, like going to a concert, certainly that is a large category. Could you potentially go into more granular detail? Is there one concert that sort of mesmerized you, that swept you off your feet, that left you wanting more and more concerts? Really, it's a matter of the impressions that you have, the impressions that it leaves you with. It's really something to think about, because it's a matter of the experience. That's what we're looking at. All right. So in talking about UX design, the focus of UX is on the enhancement of the user's experience with the product. And, really human engagement is an explicit goal. It is ultimately, UX really drives to really identify and discover and ultimately develop product solutions. So something to think about. Now, in introducing really an influencer of product design, we have Donald Norman, and he describing it as user experience that encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, and its products. One of my favorites is by John Maeda, where he describes UX design as the best art makes your head spin with questions. This is the fundamental distinction between pure art and pure design. While great art makes you wonder, great design makes things clear. I mean, ultimately, great UX design is truthfully invisible. The focus of UX design is on the experience, not on visuals for that matter. It's on the experience, making it easy to use, making the experience seamless, immensely understandable, by default, not having to go into a thorough elucidation on how something works. It's intuitive. That is what UX design, Then when we go into more visual design, that is then considered user interface design, which we will get into color theory, say how colors impact a person's cognitive performance because of the moods they engender. Let's think about red, for example. It is associated with people's recall and attention to detail. Blue is for the purpose of creativity, and yellow, essentially yellow, or for that matter, a shade of yellow, is the first color that people see. Something to think about. Oh, yes, okay, awesome. I just read your comment, Ronnie. I'm so happy. Yeah, I mean, it is a great quote. So let me ask you, I mean, would you say that this, this experience, let's say with this truck underneath the bridge is good, or stuck under a bridge is good user experience? Because remember, it's not limited to an actual interface, Would you say this is a good experience? Yes, I mean, is there a consensus that this is a bad experience? Oh, okay. Yes, I mean, inevitably, in user experience design, remember that you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about a specific target demographic. In this essence, it could be about truck drivers for that matter, and the experience that they have with this bridge. I mean, what do you think a correction for this situation would be? To avoid trucks being stuck under the bridge. Because inevitably it's important in UX design to identify solutions. And first, being able to target problems and then identifying solutions. That's a valid point. Who's to say, what car sizes can go under that bridge, because there's no exact measurement. There's no sign or indication as to, the size of the cars that could actually go beneath that bridge. So for that matter, without it, anyone can think that they could drive under that. Yes, maximum height. Personally, that's not indicated. You do see a bank sign though, but that's not helpful for the truck driver. And what about a door? Would you say that a door is good user experience? Okay, I mean, like think about a door universally. Have you always had a good experience with the door? And know that doors come in very fanciful shapes. There are an eclectic and eccentric range of doors in their designs. Yeah, I mean, truthfully, door doors are not considered good design because of the fact that a door can function differently, for the purposes that they serve, the same purpose in opening an entryway or an exit. They act differently. Some are pull, some are push. uh, the knobs are of different sizes. Say if we were to establish a golden etiquette, for the design of doors, in the sense that they are all designed the same way, that would be considered good design then, because we know automatically that a door, uh, all doors would behave in the same way, whether they open or close. Yep. Yeah, exactly, Norma. Yeah. All right, so we're just going to proceed with another example. So, would you consider this trash can to be good uh, or bad UX design? Oh, yeah. I mean, Norman ultimately describes sort of Dora as being bad design for the purposes that they function differently. There is no global functioning door. Oh yes, yes. Oh yes, yes. The trash can, bad design. By now, I mean, could you? It's pretty broad to suggest that it is bad design. Now, could you pinpoint exactly the reasonings why it is bad design? Okay, the handle. What about the handle? I mean, certainly, yeah. I mean, certainly, it can be subjective. Mm, yeah, yeah. Unsanitary. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the recycling part, it does say bottles, cans, paper. So there is a slot for the paper as well as cans too. I mean, yeah, that would be ideal if it were motion censored. Like inevitably, the curious thing is that if you notice on the right over here, there's both the trash and recycle label on the trash portion. So it could become confusing that the trash portion is also for recycling purposes. This is where labeling becomes extremely important. All iconography should always be accompanied with labels because there may be a misunderstanding of what a label means. I mean, would you suggest that, say, this recycling icon, do you have familiarity with it? Would you understand that it means recycling? Or for that matter, the icon of the person disposing of trash? Yeah, yeah. I mean, going back to the recycling, yeah, limited in the size. Mm. Yeah, so which one is a universal sign? Is it the trash disposal or the recycling or both for that matter? Yes. Okay, yeah, absolutely. All right. All right, we're going to go to the next. So, what I'm curious about, if we go back to this, so say, like, how would you know this is on Facebook to swipe? Like, say, how would you get to this, back to this screen? I'm showing you over here, this is the next, a different interaction, like a different interaction state. How would you arrive at that same screen? Like, do you know intuitively how you would arrive, you know, to arrive at that other screen like this? Think about Facebook videos. Like, is it easy? Oh, yeah. Is it is it easy to understand how to switch between views for that matter? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, yes, I mean, a carousel, could refer, whether it be vertical or horizontal. It is a matter. Yeah, you do have to swipe. Whether it be traditionally it's left to right. to actually have the news feed visible again. Yeah, I mean, it's almost inevitable that people would could get lost, could fumble for that matter. You also have to think in terms of thumb dexterity for that, what is reachable on a screen. Yeah, I mean, the question is like by default, or automatically, without any explanation, do you think someone would know how to use Facebook? Because that is great design ultimately, without any thorough elucidation, or explanation. Like, would someone understand how to use Facebook? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good parameter in terms of thinking. Um, yeah, and I mean, any ideas as to how would you say in your own personal experience, how did you learn to use Facebook? Yeah, I mean, inevitably, you learn the best way to learn something is to ultimately play around with it. Write nonsense, doodle, that could be your own design process. Pushing different buttons in order to find out their functionality. That is one way to find out how to use a product or service. And making mistakes. All right. No, so what I do want to get into is, the dumbbell diamond, which is essentially the design process for, UX design as well as product design. It is a matter of, as I was describing, like first you discover or, in determining an awareness, and then you define, and you define by the means of research and having empathy for, say, the target demographic. It's unfortunate, you know, empathy is not intrinsic to people. It is ultimately a learned skill, and it is something that will be explored and heightened, say, when learning product design and UX design, to have empathy. Um, yeah, I mean, and so after defining, it's a matter of developing, both in ideation and prototyping. Ideation is just having multiple rounds of revisions, for the purposes of, arriving at one solution. And then never, have this awareness that there's never one final version. There's continued ideation, continued updates and improvements. Hopefully the improvement is for the better. Sometimes there have been miscalculations with improvements, and it turns out that the previous version was better. But I mean, that's the thing. Nothing is ever final when it comes to design. There are continued rounds of ideations, and for that matter, there's validation, and you deliver it. And there are different team members that are involved in this process that we'll touch on shortly. And this is essentially is a list of what UX designers do. We could go down the list, visual design, which that's where we get into color theory and typography, face-to-face interviewing, now being conducted over Zoom because of the pandemic. Copywriting, there are UX writers, if you're interested, usability testing. There's interaction design and communication to stakeholders. Really think of, both product design and UX design can be broken down into more granular fields that you could ultimately focus on as a career, as an avenue of success. You could say that you are both have an awareness of product design with a speciality in, say, brainstorming coordination. That is a possibility. And if anything, say during job interviews, recruiters do ask, like, what is your focus? What do you enjoy the most? And you could essentially pull from this bank, and, what your preference is. It's all subjective. There's no right or wrong answer. You can really focus on any one of these. And it's not limited to this list. This is the list It's more expansive. It's just, this is what I could fit into the slide. And the design team, so we have the user research information architect, the visual designer, of course, the front end developer, they are a key team member. Yes, I mean, just in terms of copywriting and UX writing, know that UX writing is more focused on, say, the experience in sort of directing people to a specific action or the achievement of a goal. It is really action oriented, for the exploration of, tertiary pages of a website or an application. It is always action oriented. Oh, and let's go on. So let's just get into the details of it a little bit. Now we have a user researcher. They focus on understanding users' behaviors, needs, and motivations through research methodologies. There are a bunch of research methodologies that, consist of trend analysis and demographic analysis. There are competitive analysis. There is user interviews, surveys for the collection of quantifiable data and such. Yeah. And then we have the architect. Like, think about the content hierarchy on a website, like in terms of the prioritization of the different components on a website, what is the most important? Like, what is the key? What is the most important, would you say? Then interaction designer focuses on creating engaging web, keeping in mind users' behaviors and action. Remember, this is all oriented around people, around users. Users, I mean, this suggests are people. They're our customers. They are people that will be using your application, your product or service, and they are the target demographic. Visual design focuses on the look and feel of a product, comes up with a holistic aesthetic, and travels across all platforms. In terms of a scalable platform, they all are also pertinent to print design too. I hope everyone is enjoying the graphics. Front-end developer, obviously, after finishing your designs, you will collaborate with a front-end developer because they are the ones that will actually publish your designs. It is important to have a good rapport with developers. And for that matter, even to have a small awareness of, say, a developing language such as CSS or JavaScript, so that you have that common language that you could work together. Content strategist works to understand business and user objectives and helps plan, develop, and deliver clear, relevant content that brings the two together. It's a matter of harmony. And then product design, as what will be taught as part of the course, oversees the design process of a product from start to finish or the improvement of an existing product. Really, as I was talking about the double diamond, that is essentially what you would be learning, from the ground up. And that's the advantage of the program. And then, of course, there's the unicorn, capable of doing everything. Know that this is not the expectation, is a bit unrealistic. So, I would suggest it's good to have an awareness overall, and then to have, to specialize or focus in a specific area or two. So, here's a website that I found, and I'm like curious, in terms of considering the design team, we have user researcher, informative, visual designer, what do you think? Who would be the most involved in this website? There's the product manager, content strategist. I mean, do you even like this website for that matter? Is it confusing? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, visual designer, a big part of it, I mean, not only that, we also have to consider, because this is a website and it involved a front-end developer. Yep, thank you. Motion graphics, absolutely. interaction design though too, you know? If we just want to revisit again, like thinking of the different interaction states, you know, if we go back to this, look at the hamburger at the top right, the different interaction states upon click, look at that. It opens up an overlay of the hamburger. Ah, yes, it can be distracting. Yeah, I mean, you have to think about this also in terms of accessibility too. Is it easily readable for that? Is it easily scannable? These are all things that you need to take into consideration, you know, in product design and UX design. Busy, yeah, it is, you know, congested and close quartered for that matter, you know, and so would you say that the positives of the site overweigh the negatives, or, you know, what would you say overall in your analysis of this site? Do you like it? Oh, oh. Hey. Yeah, I mean, you also have to take that, you know, when designing a website, a desktop site, you know, it needs to be scalable. And for that matter, you know, that's where the approach comes to mind of mobile first, because it's easier to design for a smaller real estate spatial area than it is, say, for a large, because you want to begin small and then design upwards. Oh man. And so, you know, here's a guy, Maslow. They developed a hierarchy of UX needs, essentially what human beings need. And so a person's fundamental needs, such as food and safety, have to be satisfied before focusing on higher needs. So higher needs being esteem and self-author actualization. So everything below those two, those are requirements, you know, for sustenance, for well-being. And so now we could essentially switch this over to actual, you know, how this relates to UX design. Ooh. And so we have over here Jeff Hogett's UX hierarchy of needs. And so, you know, I just wanted, from starting from the ground up, you know, best practices are, you know, carefully following conventional guidelines to ensure ease of learning. Prioritization brings the most important data or functions to the fore to anticipate a user's pressing needs and to elevate or highlight them. There's guidance and helps users through complex workflows or unfamiliar activities and providing stepwise direction. Overview intends to give a user a bird's eye view of the system, summarizing most important data so it can be absorbed. Visualization is about depicting things graphically, as you can have observed from the site. It's about being illustrative beyond standard charts and graphs, finding any necessary way to depict a system or a process. And then, of course, most important is custom interactions, allow a user to work in a new way with complex data types. You know, so do you think it fulfilled Jeff Hogarth's UX hierarchy of needs, that website? Ooh, no, that's an assertive no. Yeah. Ultimately, ultimately, I would say the foundation is what is important. Best practices, consistencies, that's what's most important. And then you can indulge in the custom interaction. So the custom interaction is not necessarily the MVP. What is required is consistency, best practices, prioritization, guidance are absolutely fundamental. Those are essential. Okay, we're going to continue. So, you know, we could go over colors. And as I stated earlier, you know, essentially some of these are actual colors of the hierarchy. You know, they do influence people's behavior. You know, they do drive people's attention. It may affect a person's desire to click on a button because it is colored blue or red, though know that red is traditionally the color used for error states. So it should be reserved for that because you want to avoid people's confusion that say something is an error state other than an error state? Well, like that, thank you so much for Christina for your question. It's good to have an awareness of best practices, and it's a matter when it comes to design, it's never that you necessarily want to defy best practices, or create something entirely new that would require a lengthy, oh, I definitely will. I mean, I would say with just going back to Christina, it's that, if you create something entirely new, that will require a thorough explanation, because it is not intuitive. However, if you use something that is more conventional, that is more understandable, if you enhance it, if you add to it for that, there is that underlying understanding, that people understand it because of the basis that it is on that best practice, and then you could add a unique element to it of a convention for that matter, or of colors of a convention. Okay, so let's think about conventions in terms of a tab bar, or for that matter, of a news feed. Like the convention with a news feed is that you scroll up and down for that matter to see additional content. That is a convention. Another convention is, say, card design. If you look at Facebook, in terms of whether it is a post, an article, each card is standardized, based off of, say, Google's material design or iOS design. I would say color convention. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. Now, what I was saying about colors is in terms that, once again, that they do impact people's cognitive performance because the moods they engender. And so blue is for creativity, red is attention to detail and recall, and yellow is the first color that people see. Yes, we're going to go on. Then what we have to think about, and what should not be overshadowed by color, is typography. I have to say typography is so important because for a majority of, say, a screen's real estate, it is taken up by typography, and really typography is not banal. There are so many different styles, font families, that it really in itself is a design. So let's see for ourselves. So a meme, so an element of culture, idea, behavior, etc., that's transmitted from one person to person, and also more commonly, an image, video clip, etc., often with amusing caption that's transmitted virally on the internet. So that's just the definition. However, let's look at the different font styles, the difference that it makes, the curvature of the letters, like the radius, you ensuring that a skinny 1 aligns with an obese 8 is so important. What would you say is your preference between these different font styles? Well, font families, excuse me. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, sans serif. I mean, I would say that a sans serif is most conducive for font family selection for mobile design. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So does anyone have any questions? Oh, yeah, yeah. Any questions?
Looks like we got one. Would a front-end developer typically be on the UX team? And can a person be both a designer and a developer?
Yes. Okay. So a front-end developer ultimately is independent of a design team. They are in the development team. However, there's a close collaboration between, the UX design team and the front-end developer. they are part of the development team. And I mean, what I would encourage everyone, I stopped on this image. I would encourage everyone, to have this awareness, of software engineering languages. It's not that you have to be an expert in it, however, to have that, common language, establishes a good amount of rapport with developers. They are your teammates ultimately, because they are the one that will ultimately publish your work. They're the ones that will release it, because they are developing it.
We got another question. What is taxonomy creation?
Taxonomy is a matter of creating content groupings. Say with how would you group, let's say, apples, oranges, blueberries, like what group would they fall under? What group would you create? Content grouping. It's a matter of like, oh yes, exactly. That would be it. That is the content group. Yeah, I think it's more like fruit, because there are other kinds. You could group food, fruit, and then you have the tertiary amount. Yeah. Well, that's it. It's the primary navigation. When you think about the actual labels in the navigation, whether it be concealed in a hamburger or whether it be on a full desktop site, the navigation at the top, that is taxonomy, site taxonomy.
Looks like there's another question in the Q&A. For prototype process, what is the most common software that a UX designer should be familiar with? Adobe Illustrator, Adobe XD, Sketch, Figma, all of the above?
Yeah, I think it's important to have this awareness that there are always new and new programs that are being released, to have a good awareness. Now, inevitably, once you understand, say, the interface of one design program, you essentially will have a good understanding of them all. So nowadays it is Figma, whereas previously it was XD and Sketch. Now it is Figma, because it is a prototyping tool as well as a vector based graphic tool too. And you could also obtain the coding to your designs in Figma.
And then we have what ways to gain more artistic skills if it's not inherent? We have an entire workshop on this, that you don't actually have to be an artist to be a designer, because there's so many things that you can do to make to be able to make it make sense without actually having to be on the artistic side.
Absolutely. I would encourage everyone just to doodle, not that it needs to be anything refined or anything, know that ultimately design, UX design, product design revolves around rudimentary shapes, circles, squares, lines. That is the basis of your designs.
A couple more in the Q&A. Can you explain how a UX designer makes essentially a sample design? But then when it goes to the developer, who is responsible for filling in all of the other real content, and who is responsible for finding experts in that content? Is that the UX designer? Example, a site that has mental health or physical health details or images.
Yes, inevitably it would be a matter of, there would be the product manager, and then also in terms of the UX designer or product designer, in terms of that collaboration. Now, in terms of that level of expertise, know that the product designer, or UX designer for that matter, is the one that is essentially configuring the composition of the page. Now, as to the actual granular details of the written content, or focus of the content, then that would be done with a specialist for that matter, say like a copywriter.
If you want to pull a couple questions from the Q&A, I got to grab a link for somebody to the video I was referencing.
Did I miss anything? I just switched my speakers from my headphones to my computer.
Oh yeah, if you want to go ahead and look in the Q&A, under the Q&A button, and answer a couple questions, I'm going to pull a link for that other workshop to drop in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I see it. Okay. I see it. What is taxonomy? Yep. Yeah, I mean, just know that, the UX design, essentially is providing a mock-up, which is color agnostic because, it is establishing content hierarchy and, for the purposes of features and functionality. It then goes into, a UI designer or still within the responsibilities of a product designer. That's what we teach, where you would then go into the actual color and visual design of it. So the visual design, is ultimately what will be turned over to the developer, as well as the functional annotations that the UX designer will provide. So the basis of the work of the developer is based off of both of those documentations.
Okay, let's see. We have how important is following intuition with this career path versus making decisions based on objective information?
Now let me just add, like, ultimately know that you are not the designer. So any prejudices or experiences that you may should not ultimately influence your designs. Your design should ultimately focus around research. Now, let me just say, depending on a timeline, you may only have enough time to do so much research. However, from the research that you have conducted, you may have a gut feeling or a gut instinct that you may need to follow because of a tight deadline.
We have what are some ways to go about building a portfolio as a newbie?
Oh, I mean, certainly I would recommend, it's dependent on the web platform. They each have their own tutorials. Webflow offers its own tutorial. They essentially have both a crash course and they have a step-by-step lessons on how to develop a portfolio on its site.
And then we have how to develop a design thinking muscle. Are there some tips or practices done as a daily ritual?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to think about, in describing your own experiences, like say the experiences that I asked, like the most memorable experiences. I think it's important to think about like what you like about the product or service you use. What about the disadvantage of it? Really taking a look at it with that respect, just thinking about what you like and dislike, what opportunities are there for improvements. If you think about if you think that way, that is a great start.
Is there a difference between design thinking and product thinking?
I mean, ultimately, design thinking does involve the product, though in terms of product thinking, you may be thinking more commercially for that matter, how viable it is. There are other elements to product thinking that may be outside the scope of design thinking.
See, is it common for somebody to specialize in both UX and UI?
Yes, I mean, no, that's what product design is. Essentially it is then as the responsibility is both UX and UI, though that is not to suggest that you cannot focus in one over the other. In the course that we take, it is a 5-phase course where essentially we go through the double diamond of, discovering, defining, developing, and then delivering. That is what is taught in all 5 phases. And then you will ultimately launch your own portfolio from the projects that you completed.
It looks like there's a couple more questions about the relationship between the UX designer and the product manager. If you could just kind of lightly go over how their relationship works.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the product manager, depending, may be the one that has the idea for a project, for a product or service. They may do essentially the forecasting. And then it is dependent on the product designer to develop that solution for that matter, how the looks and the feels the goals and achievements. That is the distinction, and that is the collaboration between the two.
Okay, that was all the answers from the Q&A. Is there anybody else that has any questions this evening? Here we go. Learning about UX. Should we be reading more books on UX or watching YouTube videos?
What I would say both. Why limit yourself to one avenue or the other? Why not explore both avenues of success? And I did see a question about what inspires me or designs. Comic books.
Any tools besides Figma that you suggest?
Well, inevitably, it's helpful to have an understanding of Adobe Cloud. I would say Illustrator is helpful. Really, Illustrator. I mean, if you really want to dare, sink your hand deep into the depths of After Effects, though, know that, that's not necessary because you create a interactive or a smart prototype in Figma.
And then for just for this question from Abby, just statement from Abby, or no, so sorry, Sam. Just a feel for what the product design course is like. We actually are going to have a product design centered info session, and you can find more information about that on our website. And I will go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Got a couple more questions. How do you stay motivated while learning UX design?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say, knowing that, I'm curious, it is like in terms of a boot camp, there is that like high, and then there might be a little drop, and then it's a matter of going back up. And it is so gratifying and fulfilling, when you actually see the designs become a prototype, for that matter, an interactive prototype. I would say, in having that awareness and having that, relishing that excitement of having a prototype is riveting. Hey, there's that.
Do you need to learn to code?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Especially also with Figma, it provides you captions of code, based off of your designs. You absolutely do not, I just need to repeat this, you do not need to learn code. It is a nice to have in terms of collaborating with a front-end developer. However, it is not essential.
Anything you would recommend to not include in your portfolio starting out?
Well, know that your portfolio is a billboard of who you are as a designer. For that matter, you want to include projects and works that you have worked on that really you are proud of, whatever they may be, that you find are emblematic of who you are as a designer. That is what you should show on your portfolio.
And then we have books that you recommend to help gain an understanding of the basics that are helpful.
Yes, I mean, inevitably there's that Don Norman's book. Oh my God, I forget the name of it right now. I want to say Design Thinking, but that's not it. But yes, Everyday Things. Thank you so much. Another great one is Don't Make Me Think, which is a great book. It is a phenomenal book. Yes, Everyday Things. Yes, Don't Make Me Think. Yes, that is a book.
So as far as like the specifics on the bootcamp courses that they offer and financing, that's something for the info session. So our admissions team are really the best to handle all of those questions. They know all of the ins and outs of that. I have some very basic knowledge. We do host info sessions once a month for all disciplines. And then we have a special info session specifically for product design at the end of March. And I put that link in the chat a little while ago. I will copy and paste that again for anybody that is interested. And then I'll also link our website here. You can sign up for all of our events through our website directly. We also post them on Eventbrite. Let's see. Looks like there's a question about interviewing. So somebody that was a graphic designer that just graduated from UX UI, how could they focus an interview for their first job? They don't have any experience as far as like the UX UI interview. So if there's any like technical advice or anything you could give them.
Yes, I mean, I would say like in an interview, they will traditionally either ask for a whiteboard exercise or essentially showcasing 3 to 4 or anywhere between like 2 to 4 projects that you're proud of. And it's a matter of showing your workflow, your design thinking for that matter, essentially in identifying the problem and how you came up with the solution. You want to ensure that, you speak confidently and provide thorough explanations for the reasoning of your design. And, I would encourage you to ask a lot of questions. Know that in an interview, it is an interview both ways.
Let's see. Any suggestions for folks interested in more educational interfaces than e-commerce?
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you could just explore the different applications yourself if you want to, depending on what arena you want to look at. You could certainly do your own research in downloading and exploring these alternative websites, or do your own analysis. Alternatively, I imagine if you do a little bit of a, if you explore best practices, know that conventionally, all industries follow a convention. So it's not like one convention is exclusive to one. So if you just research best practices, it's applicable to all industries.
See, looks like we are about at time. We got one more question. How are important are mentors in the field, and how do you find one?
Wait, what was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. How important are mentors in the field, and how do you find one?
Oh, there's a great website, the ADP list, I believe it is called. Let me see if I could grab it quickly, because I want to ensure that I provide the correct one. If we just ADP. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to post this in the chat. Please ensure to bookmark this. Yes. Okay. Excellent. That is the URL for it, the ADP list.
Okay. Well, that was. Do we have one more?
They're saying they don't see the link. I did post it. Is there a reason?
Oh, because you have it to host and panelists. You got to change the little button.
Oh my God. Okay. Wait, everyone. There we go. Okay. Everyone can see it. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
We can also.
Yes. Should we blame this on? Yeah. I mean, it's a bad design maybe for Zoom though. Hey, look at that. They had the button blue. Is there a reason for that? Should they have changed it to a different color to be more attention grabbing?
I've had several people to say that they don't even see it. So it's, that's why I have to point it out several times through the event, because they will just like that, like one person will see it and they're like, where did that thing go? I've definitely done it myself. Well, thank you again for leading this for us, Scott. I really appreciate it. I believe that everybody had a really great time tonight. I really loved the interaction in the chat for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. It was such a pleasure.
And as a reminder, you're going to receive a copy of tonight's presentation within 3 business days after the event. And if you'd like to see any previous events we've had, I had the YouTube channel posted in there that has some of our design stuff, as well as our website with all of our events. And we hope to see you guys soon. Have a great night, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Have a phenomenal night. It was such a pleasure, everyone.